Okay. Hello, Assalamu alaikum, everybody. It is a pleasure to have all of you guys here today for the MSA National Conference. I am Adnan Perwez. I'm a graduate student at Harvard studying religion and politics, as well as one of two student directors for MSA National. We are very pleased to have you guys here today, and inshallah, I'll be going over the programming in a minute, as well as what MSA National is. But before we do that, I want to invite Brother Qari Ahmed for the Quran recitation. Brother Qari Ahmed, the floor is yours.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم واضرب لهم مثل الرجلين جعلنا لأحدهما جنتين من أعناب وحففناهما بنخل وجعلنا بينهما زرعا كلتا الجنتين آتت أكلها ولم تظلم منه شيئا وفجرنا خلالهما نهرا وكان له ثمر فقال لصاحبه وهو يحاوره أنا أكثر منك مالا وأعز نفرا ودخل جنته وهو ظالم لنفسه قال ما أظن أن تبيد هذه أبدا وما أظن الساعة قائمة ولئن رددت إلى ربي لأجدن خيرا منها منقلبا قال له صاحبه وهو يحاوره أكفرت بالذي خلقك من تراب ثم من نطفة ثم سواك رجلا لكن هو الله ربي ولا أشرك بربي أحدا ولولا إذ دخلت جنتك قلت ما شاء الله لا قوة إلا بالله إن ترني أنا أقل منك مالا وولدا فعسى ربي أن يؤتيني خيرا من جنتك ويرسل عليها حسبانا من السماء فتصبح صعيدا زلقا أو يصبح ماؤها غورا فلن تستطيع له طلبا وأحيط بثمره فأصبح يقلب كفيه على ما أنفق فيها وهي خاوية على عروشها ويقول يا ليتني لم أشرك بربي أحدا ولم تكن له فئة ينصرونه من دون الله وما كان منتصرا هنالك الولاية لله الحق هو خير ثوابا خير عقبا. جزاكم الله خير.
Jazakallah khair, Brother Ahmed, for that beautiful recitation. So, once again, for everyone just joining, thank you guys for joining us. First, what I will do is I will give a quick overview of the conference schedule as a whole, specifically today's schedule, and then I will be doing a short introduction into MSA National, who we are and what we do. And then, inshallah, I will go ahead and give the introduction to our first speaker and we will begin. But to give an overview of today's schedule, today we have 3 main sessions planned for all of you. All the times I will be saying will be in Central Standard Time, so please adjust accordingly. We will begin at 11:30 a.m. and take our first break at 1:30. There will be an hour break, and then inshallah we will begin again at 2:30, and we will end at 4:45. We will again have a break, and then we will start at 6 for our last session for today and end at 10. Tomorrow will be the Officer Development Day, and we will begin at 12 p.m. for our first session, end at 1:30 p.m. Central Time. Then we will have a second session from 2 p.m. to 3:15 p.m. Central Time, and then a final session from 4 p.m. to 6:30 p.m. tomorrow, and that will end our conference. So inshallah, once again, our first session will be from 11:30 a.m. Central, and we will end at 1:30 p.m. Central. If you guys have any questions or if you guys want to look at the schedule, please just go to our website, msanational.org, where you can see, inshallah, all of the sessions and speakers we have planned for today. I'm going to go ahead and talk a little bit about MSA National, who we are as an organization and what we do. MSA National, as many of you might know, is one of the oldest Muslim American nonprofit organizations. We were founded in 1963, and one of the things that we feel very blessed about is, alhamdulillah, we have been able to serve Muslim students for over 50 years and have produced many amazing leaders who went on to found their own organizations and have served the community in a variety of ways. We have gone through different phases. Currently, what we focus on is supporting regional councils. Regional councils for MSAs are organizations like MSA West in California, LSC, the Lone Star Council in Texas, and MUSA, the Midwest MSA Council in the Midwestern region, which we helped found and one of our staff members works for. And what we do is we try to provide cutting-edge resources to these councils that are tailored and customized to the needs of students. Our vision as MSA National is to serve Muslim students and alumni and facilitate their efforts to establish, develop, and maintain professionally supported chapters of Muslim student associations. Our vision is to be able to have all Muslim students have a safe space in which to build a closer relationship with God and their community. Finally, we have many, many ways for you guys to be involved beyond just conference. Some of the ways that you can be involved is we have a campaign that is focusing on resource building. We have a committee that is open for student government MSA leaders that you can join and coordinate and work together with other Muslim student government campus leaders. And we also have a soon to be launched committee that focuses on data collection and needs assessment for different MSAs. These are all committees that are either currently open or will be open in the near future. So if you guys want more updates or if you guys have any questions about how to be involved, please visit us at msanational.org or email us at info@msanational.org. All right. Thank you guys for tuning in. I'm going to go ahead and introduce our first speaker, inshallah. Our first session to start off this conference is entitled Allah Loves the Truth Tellers and the Justice Seekers. Our speaker is Sister Linda Sarsour. Sister Linda is an award-winning racial justice and civil rights activist. She is the co-founder of the first Muslim online organizing platform, Empower Change. She was one of the national co-chairs of the largest single-day protest in U.S. history, the Women's March on Washington. She has been named amongst 500 of the most influential Muslims in the world, recognized as one of Fortune's 50 greatest leaders, and featured as one of Time Magazine's 100 most influential people. She is currently a 2019 Roddenberry Fellow, and currently just released her highly anticipated book, We Are Not Here to Be Bystanders, a memoir of love and resistance. Sister Linda, it is a pleasure to have you here today. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Brother Adnan. Salaam alaikum, everyone. I actually don't do as well on these Zooms as I do in real life. And inshallah, very soon we will be in space together. I didn't want to miss this opportunity to join you here. I have been, you can probably tell by my face, I am just so exhausted. I am really exhausted, both physically and emotionally and mentally, from all of the things that I know that you all are experiencing around you. And I also still believe that this is going to be a defining moment in our lives as Muslim Americans, and just people all over the world. And so I didn't want to give up this opportunity to share with you my thoughts. I usually write down like a couple of things that I want to say to make sure that I'm putting forth at least some important action items and things. So I haven't actually done that this time. I number one, I haven't really found just some time to just sit and reflect. So today what I'm going to do is I'm just going to speak to you directly from the heart. And it's the best way that I can convey a message to all of you. We are living in an unprecedented moment. And I think about every day when I wake up and I say, what do I want people to tell about my generation? What stories do I want people to tell about our Muslim American community 20, 30, 40, 50 years from now? And that's very important to me, that there comes a time when somebody will look back and say, MashaAllah, our Muslim American community, they were steadfast, they were organized, they were united, they were working, and they were at the front lines of justice in America. I want young Muslims 50, 60 years from now to look back at moments like 2016 and 2018 and 2020 and 2022 and 2024 and see beautiful Muslim women, Muslim women wearing hijab, our young brothers leading protests for racial justice and economic justice and immigrant justice. One of the things that I always tell young Muslims all the time is that our existence as a people, for some, is extremely controversial. And you all know that about me. I don't even have to say anything. I could wake up in the morning and say, good morning. And my presence as a Palestinian Muslim American, as someone who is a steadfast supporter of the boycott, divestment, sanctions movement, and also as someone who's not going to capitulate or cower to any people in power, is in itself very controversial in this moment. But I've learned a lot of lessons, sisters and brothers, when what I do believe wholeheartedly in my heart and why I am who I am and I show up the way that I do, is I believe that Allah loves the truth tellers. I believe that Allah loves those who seek justice. I believe that Allah loves those who choose to be amongst the most marginalized people. I believe Allah loves those who are supporting the most oppressed around the world. I believe Allah loves those who are spending and resources and time to alleviate the suffering of the people of the Uyghur Muslims in China, the Rohingya Muslims in Myanmar and who are now in Bangladesh, alleviating the suffering that's happening in Ethiopia, in Somalia, and right now with the recent floods that have happened in Sudan. I believe that Allah loves those who are committing time and efforts to support the people of Palestine, the people of Kashmir, the people of Syria, and the people of Yemen. I believe that Allah loves those who are on the front lines of disaster relief, especially now. Recently, as you all know, there was a hurricane that happened in parts of Texas and Louisiana. And I know that many of our brothers and sisters in many relief organizations have went there and have been to Haiti and have been to many parts of the country where disaster has hit. I believe Allah loves those of us who are on the front lines fighting for the sanctity of Black life in America. So for me, sisters and brothers, we are in a moment where we have to be our whole entire truthful selves, regardless of what those consequences are. Because in this life, sisters and brothers, we live for Allah and only Allah. I don't care what headlines have to say about me. I don't care what leaders have to say about me. I don't care what anyone has to say about me. I understand that what I am doing is in the tradition of our beloved faith and deen, and that is who we are supposed to be in this moment. But I'm going to get to something very important and very critical in this moment. Donald Trump is someone who embodies a lot of the evil that we've been taught about in Islam, a lot of the diseases of the heart, greed and envy and corruption and theft and all kinds of really bad things. And so I believe it is our imperative as Muslim Americans to be part of the efforts to defeat Donald Trump in 2020. And I truly believe that from the bottom of my heart. And I know that us as Muslim Americans, we're not a monolithic community. We care about a lot of issues and a lot of us focus on different issues. But it is important, sisters and brothers, to understand how detrimental this administration has been to many marginalized communities. And so for me, I have my own personal views. I'm not excited about this national election, as many of you I know are not as well. But what I do know, sisters and brothers, is that we have an obligation, and Allah gave us talent. Allah gave us a mind and intellect. Allah gave us ways to reason and to work with logic, not just to work with our feelings, sisters and brothers. We have to work with logic. And some of the people in our community who are for me, the most important, the people in our community who really can help us to galvanize and to organize and to mobilize our community are young Muslims. For me, when I think about young Muslims, I think about MSA leaders, I think about college students, I think about those in that age group who I am the most committed to. You're all I got. You are all we got as a Muslim American community. You are our present and you are our future. And so this election is going to be defining for our generation. And a lot of people will say, Sister Linda, this is just another election. It's another, lesser of two evils. And I want to share with you that your sister Linda, who's on the front lines every day, someone I would never lie to our Muslim community. I would never lead you astray unless I believe wholeheartedly what I'm telling you to do is something that is for the benefit of not only our community, but all marginalized communities. Sisters and brothers, one of the things that the office of the president has a lot of control over is the Supreme Court, and to appoint federal judges across the country. Many of you may not know this, but this administration has appointed 1 out of every 4 federal judges who sit on statewide benches and state courts across the country. And people have to understand that we could be setting a very dangerous precedent if we are allowing this office of the president to stack federal judgmentships with people who are against our values, and some even against our faith and against who we are as Muslim Americans, people who are against other marginalized communities. We can't allow that to happen. Sisters and brothers, you already saw what happened to us as a Muslim community when we got up. As you all know, I joined the Council on American Islamic Relations, CARE, and we sued Donald Trump on the Muslim ban. We sued him 3 days after he announced the Muslim ban. Many other organizations also sued Donald Trump. The National Immigration Law Center, the ACLU, so many organizations around the country sued Donald Trump for the Muslim ban. And suing Donald Trump was about us trying to get to a place where we push our country to uphold its original ideals, to say that families should be reunited, that we should not be targeted for who we are and the faith that we follow. We went all the way up till our community got to the Supreme Court, sisters and brothers. And with only one person who was a little conservative, who kind of went to vote alongside the other conservatives on the Supreme Court, guess what happened to us in the Supreme Court? We lost, sisters and brothers. Our community already knows what it feels like to lose with a conservative Supreme Court. So what I'm asking you to do this election, and I came here for this because I know how important this is to me and to many of you. And many of you are confused. You feel betrayed. Many of you I know supported, the candidate that I loved, which is Senator Bernie Sanders. And we supported Senator Bernie Sanders not because he was a perfect candidate, not because he had no flaws, not because he agreed with everything that we believed in our community, We supported Senator Bernie Sanders because we felt seen by him. We felt like we could sit at a table, that we could have conversations, that we could share our values and our principles as Palestinian Americans, as South Asians, as Arab Americans, as African Americans, as Muslim Americans. We truly felt heard. And that is one of the reasons why I went to the campaign, because I felt like our community deserved a seat at the table, that the issue of Palestine deserved a seat at the table, that we should be fighting for and making sure that one of the top issues in this election season was making sure everyone had health care. I believe in that, sisters and brothers. It's one of my top issues. Health care is a human right. Allah would love us if we were able to figure out how to ensure every human being that resides in our nation had access to health care, that when they were sick, that they were able to get the care that they deserve. And so we didn't get our candidate. Our candidate did not win. And we could have a longer conversation about why that is the case. But the point here is now we are in this situation. And I hope what the situation does that we're in right now is makes us understand how much more work we have to do. Sisters and brothers, nothing comes easy. And you are all students, and you have learned a lot about not only the history of this country, but the histories of revolutions and the histories of communities across the world, whether it be in Bangladesh or in Pakistan or in Yemen or in Palestine. These have been long-term, decades and decades and decades of struggle for freedom and liberation. So what I want you to see yourselves as part of a community, as part of a nation where we have to be part of this long-term fight. Many of you have studied the life of Dr. Martin Luther King. And I will never forget Dr. Martin Luther King just a few days before he was assassinated, sisters and brothers. He was apparently a peaceful man, a man who organized nonviolently. I am trained in Kingian nonviolence, and even a nonviolent man, a man who wanted to find harmony and to find justice and equality. He too was assassinated. But you know what he said before he was assassinated? He was telling the people in his last lecture. He said, I may not get there with you, but I see the promised land. And what I say to all of you, my Muslim sisters and brothers, is sometimes I think about 50 years from now where we will be as a community. I don't know if I'm going to be there. I don't know if I will be with the young generation, but I do see a promised land, sisters and brothers. But we have to commit to planting seeds now that we may not see the fruits of that labor. Dr. Martin Luther King did not get to see a lot of the fruits of his labor. Many folks who have organized in many of the nations we are from, and even in this nation, did not see nor reap the benefits of what they were able to work for. So what I'm asking you to do, sisters and brothers, is trust me on this one and trust Allah. Remember, we have a hadith and something, a lot of, different types of places in Islam, whether it be in the Quran, whether it be in the hadith, in the Sunnah, where we are taught oftentimes, people say, Sister Linda, trust Allah. I trust Allah with all of my heart. But what I also do know about our deen, it's a very practical deen. So not only do we trust Allah, but we have been told to tie our camels. And what I'm asking you this year, sisters and brothers, as young people on college campuses, as people with moms and dads and siblings and aunts and uncles and cousins and communities, that we tie our camels. If we allow this administration to get 4 more years, sisters and brothers, we potentially could be harming generations of Muslims to come. In fact, we could be harming our own faith if we have Supreme Court justices who may even question the validity of our deen as a protected class, as we've seen some of them threatened in the past. Many right-wing Republicans and others have threatened that in the past. We have seen anti-Sharia bills literally introduced in many states around the country. So what I'm asking you to do is a few things. If you are not registered to vote, I want you to register to vote, sisters and brothers. Remember, there have been people who sacrificed for our right to vote in this country. And I want you to honor those people. And I want you to find a local candidate in your community. There are so many Muslim Americans. There are so many immigrant women, women of color, Black women, Black people, young people who are running for office across the country, who love us and who respect us and who are aligned with our values and principles of equality and justice for all people. Why don't you support a local candidate? Knock some doors, make some calls. And I'll tell you that when you do that and you are supporting an exciting candidate, what that does is it will help, as they say, the top of the ticket. It will, that enthusiasm we generate on a local level will then expand the electorate. One of the things that's going to happen this election, sisters and brothers, because of the coronavirus and because of voter suppression, is that They are going to try everything that they can to stop us from voting. Not just our communities, but other poor and working class communities, of course, Black communities across the country. And we have to come out in such strong numbers that we need to put it in our mind that somebody's going to try to steal this election. And in order for us to be able to combat that, we need to have, if we can, 100% voter turnout. And I know that that seems impossible, but all we have to do is make our own individual commitment to go to the polls. I want you to register your mom and your dad and your uncle and your auntie and your neighbor next door and your colleagues and your entire MSA. Register them to vote. And then when election day comes, sisters and brothers, I know that sometimes the hardest thing to do is the right thing to do, right? Sometimes we want to do the easy things. And the easy thing would be for us to say, I don't agree with this election. I don't agree with any of the candidates. They don't align. They don't follow, you know what, and just stay home. I'm asking you, sisters and brothers, and I came for this very reason. Trust your sister. I have proven to our Muslim community that I'm willing to die for the things that I believe in. Many of you know that I'm talking to you all the way from Louisville, Kentucky. I've moved to Louisville, Kentucky because I believe in justice for Breonna Taylor. And I believe that we cannot live in a country where a Black woman cannot live safely inside of her home. And so, you know me, will never ask you to do something that I myself am not doing. So I am imploring you, sisters and brothers, to join me in this election, to register to vote, to get out to the polls. And I promise you that Sister Linda will organize mass demonstration, mass protest, and I'm committed to holding a Biden-Harris administration accountable. I don't want the invites to the White House. I'm not going to go to the iftars. I am going to be on the street every single day, defending our rights as Muslim Americans, defending marginalized communities, and building the political will for Joe Biden and Kamala Harris to do right by our communities. And remember, sisters and brothers, as our brother Nipsey Hussle said, this is not a sprint, it's a marathon. And the question to our Muslim communities is, are you committed to work decades to come to ensure that our community could live with true dignity and full justice in these United States of America? Thank you so much to MSA and MSA National, all the great work that you do. I look forward to coming back to your college campuses, inshallah, in the next year, so we could build and organize together and build the type of community that we can all be proud of. Assalamu alaikum.
Jazakallah. Thank you, Sister Linda, for your beautiful, inspirational words. Your work is an inspiration for many of us involved in activism, and I pray that Allah blesses you and preserves you. Next up, we have Dr. Altaf Hussein. His session is entitled We Plan, Allah Plans. As a short biography introduction, Dr. Altaf Hussein serves as an associate professor and chair of the Community Administration and Policy Practice concentration in the Howard University School of Social Work. He holds a joint appointment as a research fellow in the Center for the Study of American Muslims and the Center for Global Health at the Institute for Social Policy and Understanding. His research interests range from mental health and psychosocial well-being of adolescent immigrants and refugees of color in the U.S. to the development of social service agencies in the Muslim community. As a quick plug, he has also served on the board for MSA National for many, many years and has been an integral part of the organization. Dr. Altaf, it is great to see you. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much. أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. My dear respected brothers and sisters, wherever you are at this time watching this conference, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, gathers us on this blessed day to learn from one another. And I want to begin by thanking the organizers, MSA National in this case, for putting on this conference, allowing all of us to gather in a virtual setting. Of course, we would have loved to have been in person, but we do what we can. So may Allah bless them and the organizers and all the volunteers. In addition, I wanted to thank Sister Linda for her tireless service to the community. We often don't show enough gratitude. And one of the guiding principles of MSA National is indeed that gratitude binds our hearts together. So thank you, Sister Linda. The topic that I have in the short time that we're together is we plan and Allah plans. And indeed, I wanted to really not only focus, of course, I'll make some comments about COVID-19 and the pandemic, but this is our life's mission. This is not something we learned or we started talking about just because COVID happened. And, starting in March, all the seniors in college and others who were graduating or expected to graduate, got all flustered because, and rightfully so, because they couldn't have the in-person ceremonies and everything went virtual. Planning, and indeed the concept of planning, is very integral and central to the life of a Muslim. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala throughout the Quran really shows the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam all of the lessons of da'wah from the prophets who came before him, and how they intended something or they may have wanted something, and how actually it unfolded, right? And so because we're limiting it to 15-minute sessions, I'm going to hone in on practical examples of what we're talking about. And inshallah ta'ala, offline and on social media, we can have, other sort of public conversations about what this means. The first thing to ask when we talk about we plan is really how good is our plan, right? With what intention did we make our plan? What is and what are the goals and objectives of the plan, right? So we can't just keep talking in a almost like in a fatalistic sense, that because there is the concept of qadar in Islam, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ultimately has predestined things, that we are not going to engage and exert any human effort in planning. So that is where the question has to start, is that what is the plan like? And so when we do a plan, and inshallah it is a good plan, and inshallah the intention is sincere, and that we put forward, very clear goals and objectives for our plan, then we put forward our effort, and then we trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for whatever actually transpires, because that's in His domain. What actually transpires is in His domain. COVID-19, for example, if we start here, and then I'll work through other examples, right, has really taught us that if needed, the entire world could actually come to a standstill. That airports could basically become ghost towns, and travel as we know it and mobility as we know it could come to a standstill. Nobody had planned it that way. And even the best urban planners and systems engineers and all kinds of folks who kind of look at this notion of movement would not have been able to plan that you could actually simulate, you could not even simulate it, that you could bring the world to a standstill. So what is the difference, right, if any, between what we planned and what actually transpired? And how do we get to that point of assessment and evaluation? So the question to ask is, check the efforts. If the plan was solid, but the efforts that we exerted were weak, there was not enough attention given to acquire the best tools and resources, right? How big is that gap? How big is that gap? If you think about it in terms of the history, right, of Muslims around the world, oftentimes we got too really concerned about slogans and if you will, bumper stickers and t-shirts to say that Islam has the solution for things, but we never really focused heavily on the plan to be able to realize those solutions. So think about in your own personal life, what does that look like, right? And what if there is a difference in terms of the plan that you made and the plan that as Allah manifested it or as Allah revealed it? Number one principle is have trust in Allah. Tawakkul is a central concept in our religion. And theologically speaking, this is not just to say, I just will, just kind of have it in the back of my head that I trust in Allah. No, this is active trust in Allah. Even as you're planning, thinking about your major, right? People know I began, for example, as a biomedical engineer. I completed my biomedical engineering degree, and then I shifted because of life circumstances, my own growth process, and all of the other things into macro social work, nonprofit organizations, community development. That's what I anticipated as the needs of our community. So I went into that major and then ultimately got a PhD in social work, and I teach in social work, right? What is the plan? And how are you showing that you trust in Allah? Not second guessing what's happening, rather saying that ultimately whatever happens, I understand It happened because I trusted in Allah, right, for the best disposition. Number two, be ihsanic. In the Quran, we hear about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves the muhsinin, the people who are doers of good, the people who are in other derivations of that same word, who are striving for excellence, right? So think excellence, be excellent, do excellence. And I know that's not professorial language, but what I'm saying is that in everything you do, with the planning, with the execution and the implementation of the plan, be excellent, do your best. Don't do mediocre work. We don't have any place in the Muslim community at all for people just getting through life in a mediocre way. We desperately need every one of you to go through your majors. Change the majors with intention if that's what it needs, and that's where your mind and your journey and your heart is headed, right? Consult advisors, consult parents. But whatever you choose to do it well. Do it well. Number two principle for ihsan. Number three, in terms of we plan and Allah plans, is to be patient. And here, the Quran, the concept of sabr, right? Be patient with what is transpiring, what is taking place. Resist the instinct, which is a terrible instinct we've developed, right? To be all over social media, even as things are unfolding, right? Giving live updates of successes or failures. Patience means that you are in the moment. You are recognizing, you're having taqwa and God consciousness to say, what exactly is going on? What exactly is going on with me, right? How is my life unfolding? What is going on with my academic work, with my social life, with my personal life, my emotional health, my mental health, right? My financial well-being, right? The pandemic has affected us in many ways. So what is patience like? Patience is essentially being, God conscious and having trust in Allah at the moment that we are tested. Not going onto social media or getting everybody else, and reacting in many other ways that are displeasing to Allah, but indeed being patient first. And how ultimately will all of this come together? It should come together where I started. What is the plan like? How intentional are you about the plan? How much effort are you putting into making the plan? Are you really going out of your way to be sure that you have, put forth your best effort, the best resources to execute the plan, right? Planning literally means, right, that you are looking at every possible aspect as humanly possible. Clearly, it may not be that you can see everything, and that's one of the advantages of shura and consultation and trying to get the advice and the nasiha of others, right? But imagine when you show dissatisfaction, when you show displeasure with what Allah plans, it's usually a sign of the lack of healthy connection between the believer and his or her creator. Yes, humanly, we may be disappointed that something didn't go the way we wanted it to, right? I mentioned the choice of major, right? I mentioned the idea that people are doing their best to get through the pandemic with all kinds of different, of adaptations. I've mentioned, and, I can give you examples upon example, a case, for example, right? A brother who, studied, mashallah, in computer science and so programming and everything else. And then Allah blessed him with marriage. But as they got married, in the earliest of stages, he discovered some issues with his arms that would prevent him from actually being able to type, just not even regularly, but just type, in terms of all kinds of pains and other issues. His career, as he had thought and planned for it, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had shifted it and said something else is going to happen, now, and how will you deal with that news, right? We've had young people recently who have passed away in drowning accidents, right? And so they would have planned for their whole life, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had a different plan for them. We've had people who got married, and within a week, one of the spouses died. We know these are not made up stories. How do you do that? You planned your entire life for that special, stage in your life, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has willed that indeed your spouse passes away, right? You may have a death of a parent, during the pandemic, or even you may have had it before the pandemic, or Allah knows what's coming up for any of us, right? We plan and Allah plans. But always remember that Allah is the best of planners. Sometimes planning is really taxing. It's heavy. We don't want to exert the effort because we're getting by. Mediocrity in planning is a devastation, and most assuredly will lead to, incomplete, in fact, not achieving the goals and objectives on the one hand, and then a lot of waste of resources and time and energy that we could have used in other places. So brothers and sisters, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala indeed bless every single one of you with the ability to have clarity of thought and action to make sure that you develop the best of plans for your personal life, your family life, your academic life, your social life, your spiritual life and spiritual health, and your learning of the religion, whatever the planning is taking place. But the principles I mentioned, tawakkul, have trust in Allah, sabr, right? Be ihsanic, be excellent in whatever you're doing, and have patience and sabr, because ultimately Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala indeed has the best for you. So I am at the 1:15 mark. I don't see any signals yet. I have one or two more points to make, so just interrupt me, inshallah, if I'm out of time. What I want you to do, in the downtime that you have, is to actually think through what is my immediate sort of 6-month plan, an annual plan, a 3-year plan, a 5-year plan, and just sort of start exercising that part of your thinking, critical thinking, so that you do your best and you actually have some sense of what you want to do and where you want to be. I remember back when I was, I had one term as president of MSA National, and I was, starting my PhD, and I said, I can't do anymore. It was August of 2001. And I said, it was 2-year term, and I said, it's impossible. It's just so taxing, so much going on. I need to focus on my family. I just got married, my own dissertation. And subhanAllah, Allah had willed that enough people would encourage me and push me to go for the 2nd term of the MSA National President. And within weeks of that, the September 11th attacks happened, which was yesterday, the 19th year to commemorate, to mark that tragedy, that terrible tragedy took place. We had planned a different life as Muslims, as the community, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had willed that through that terrible tragedy, so much good would come out in personal lives, in community lives, in careers, in career shiftings. A former president of MSA National who was heading to med school shifted gears and actually then went to get a PhD in Islamic studies. Think about what that means, right? What is Allah's plan for you? Are you thinking about a plan? Living day to day is great. That's fine, right? You only live once, for sure. We know that. But what about what keeps you and what keeps us from developing a plan, right? So please do that. Develop that plan, inshallah, and do your best to ultimately, allow us to, to all benefit from your good deeds, from your good actions, inshallah, as you complete your major and as you come out, into the real world, if you will, that you're able to really benefit not only yourself, your family, but especially your community. And by community, I mean literally the broader community, not just Muslims. Don't think narrowly. Plan to have the widest impact you possibly can through your career and through your volunteerism, inshallah. So I will pause there and I will turn it back over to the moderators, inshallah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala indeed bless all of you for joining. Share the link, encourage others to join. Make the most of this experience together, inshallah. And if we can ever be of benefit, definitely visit us at yaqeeninstitute.org and take advantage of all the resources. We have amazing resources for colleges and college students, and also people of all ages, but particularly through the Yaqeen conversations and the conviction circles, halaqah manuals, and halaqah resources. Everything is there for you. So please do visit Yaqeen Institute and continue to support MSA National. Thank you again. Jazakumullahu khairan. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.
Jazakallah. Thank you, Dr. Altaf. I know many of us are struggling with this idea of qadr and planning, especially after this pandemic. So your words of wisdom were truly, truly something to reflect on and very, very beneficial. Jazakallah.
Thank you.
Before I proceed to our next speaker, I want to do a quick plug for our sponsors. Alhamdulillah, we've had the opportunity to be blessed with a lot of very, very generous sponsors. They have agreed to do some giveaways, which we'll be doing throughout the program. And this is going to be the first of many giveaways, inshallah. The first giveaway is sponsored by Salam Snacks. And this is a giveaway of 5 separate snack sets. I'm looking at the picture right now. It has some very delicious food that is making me hungry. So maybe I will join in as well. But to be able to win this, what you need to do is post on your Instagram story of an image from the conference with the hashtag MSA Goes Virtual and tag us at MSA National. Again, to win this great snack set from our sponsor, Salam Snacks, post on your Instagram story of an image from the conference with the hashtag MSA Goes Virtual and tag us at MSA National. With that, inshallah, I will go ahead and introduce our next speaker. This session is entitled Unfolding Your Story, and we are joined with Sister Seema Aberra. Sister Seema is a writer, poet, and digital strategist dedicated to working at the intersection of media and social impact. She is currently a senior communications manager at Change Consulting. Previously, she worked as an audience engagement editor at The Atlantic and the Center for Public Integrity, as well as a marketing associate at Mission Asset Fund. Outside of work, she has experience organizing workshops and storytelling events, as well as performing through groups such as the Muslim Writers Collective and the Sanctuaries. Sister Seema, it is a pleasure to have you join us today. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much for that kind introduction. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. I'm so honored to be here, and thank you for taking some time out of your Saturday to be a part of this amazing conference and to learn. I'm going to share my screen. So let me... see if I can do that. All right. Okay. All right, so the title of my presentation is Unfolding Your Story, Pursuing a Career in Media. I'm going to talk a little bit about my career path and also hopefully give you all some insight into what it's like to be in this field and give you some direction and opportunities. So the power of stories. I want to start off with some framing. This is a very common quote I think many of you have probably heard of before, but I think it's incredibly important. It's something I think about in the work that I do. It's from Malcolm X, and the quote is, "If you're not careful, the newspapers will have you hating the people who are being oppressed and loving the people who are doing the oppressing." I think it's really important to think about the role that media plays and the power that it has to be a part of it, to shape the way people think and feel about things. And a second quote that I find really, really important is by the Nigerian author Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. And she says, "The single story creates stereotypes. And the problem with stereotypes is not that they are untrue, but that they are incomplete. They make one story become the only story." And these are two quotes that I carry throughout my career and help remind me of the importance of what I'm doing when I feel like I'm not sure if it is worth it, if it makes sense, and understanding that there is real power in stories, and stories are how we think about the world. Stories are what humans crave. It's how we understand what's happening around us, and it's what makes a career in media really exciting. So I want to talk about diversity in media. As those quotes both share, there is power in media, but who actually has the power? So just really briefly, there's so many statistics to share, but I wanted to just share this from a survey that was done last year on newsroom diversity. And it found that journalists of color make up only a third of the full-time workforce at online-only news organizations. Women make up only 41.8% of all newsroom workers, and of all newsroom managers, 18.8% were people of color. So when it comes to race, ethnicity, and gender, the news industry is not diverse at all. And they don't even really gather data as much about religion. And so imagine if we add religion into that, the amount of people who are, Muslim or of non, Christian faith would be also very, very small. And so it is a very depressing statistics, but I'm sharing this to show that there is a lot of opportunity and a lot of need. And so just a little bit about my career path. I graduated from Arizona State University in 2013 with my bachelor's degrees in journalism and global studies. I knew I was really interested in writing and telling stories, and I cared about what was happening in the world. But when I was there, I didn't know exactly what I was going to do. And so part of kind of the double meaning of this presentation is not just unfolding your story in media, but also understanding that you yourself are a story and figuring out your life. I loved what Brother Altaf talked about planning. I'm a huge planner, but sometimes the best of plans can kind of go south, or you don't always know what your next step is. So I highly recommend being open and being flexible, especially in a career in media, with what you should be doing next, because there's no one way to do it. So just really quickly, when I was in college, some of the places that I interned at were the International Rescue Committee and Make-A-Wish Foundation. I was interested in working at nonprofits and helping them tell stories and make a difference. After I graduated, I did a fellowship where I did a nonprofit communications internship in San Francisco at an organization called the Mission Asset Fund. And they were focused on credit building and asset building and economic empowerment for low income and predominantly communities of color. And that was a fantastic opportunity to learn about how the stories of low income people and of immigrants are not told and what their needs are. And so what can we do to make people care? When I was in graduate school at American University, I continued my studies in international media. And when I was there, I interned at the news outlet Vox, where I was an intern in their first person section. And it's a vertical that focuses on first person experiences and essays and stories. And I loved doing this because I felt like so often the humanity behind news stories is forgotten. And so I loved that I got to highlight stories that touched on social issues, that touched on things that were happening in our world, but really getting people's insight and being able to sit down and interview them. I also did a 4-month fellowship with a news outlet called Everyday Feminism, talking about social justice and immigration issues, because I felt like that was something that a lot of people didn't understand, and I wanted to help explain these topics and give people resources on what they could do about it. After I graduated, I went to the Center for Public Integrity, and they're an investigative newsroom, and I was their audience engagement editor. So my job was to run their social media accounts, their email newsletter, and help show people all of the great investigative journalism work that these reporters were working on, and help people understand why it mattered, spread the word, get the word out there so people actually read and care and want to do something about it. And after that, I joined The Atlantic and continued to do audience engagement work. And I focused specifically on visual storytelling and how to take these massive articles and cover stories and make them accessible for people who are reading really quickly on their phones and want to be told a story in a more entertaining way. And my most recent position, which I just started only a few weeks ago, is as a senior communications manager at a consulting firm called Change Consulting. And what I do is I help nonprofits, foundations, and change makers tell their story and make a difference in the world. And so you could say, what do all of these organizations, what do all of these things have in common? Sometimes when I look back at my resume, I get stressed because I'm like, who are you and what are you trying to do? But I realize that I have one thorough line, and what I care the most about is storytelling for social impact, storytelling that's not just for the sake of a story, but to actually do something, to move the needle, to influence, to persuade, to motivate, to empower people. I basically want to make a difference in the world, and I think stories are one way to do that. So some of my work that I am really proud of As I said, being a Muslim, a Black Muslim woman in a newsroom is very uncommon. And so it's nice to know that some of the time that I've spent in these outlets, I've been able to share perspectives that probably would not have happened if I hadn't been there. So I want you to think about that when you're thinking about what you can bring to the table and the unique experience and ideas that you have and why they're so needed. So earlier this year, I worked on a story that showcased and highlighted what it was like to celebrate Ramadan before the pandemic, and put together a photo essay of, why Ramadan is such a beautiful month and experience, and a collective experience that we unfortunately did not get to have in the same way this year. For the Christian Science Monitor, I wrote a story about the growth of Muslim writers in the children's literature field, and how this opportunity is teaching people about Muslim characters if they hadn't known about them before, and it's allowing Muslim kids to see themselves in books. And as someone who, wants to write a children's book one day, it was also just a lot of fun to learn from Muslim authors who were able to encourage me and show me that it can be done. And I felt like that was important to share with the world, that there are Muslims who have stories and they deserve to be told. And when I was at Everyday Feminism, I worked on, as I said, immigration stories. And one of the important things I wanted to share was about how African refugees are particularly affected, but yet they're not highlighted in stories. They're often focused on refugees from the Middle East. And there isn't necessarily a hierarchy, or it's not to compare tragedies, but to show that there's really a huge disservice when we forget all of the people who are also displaced and are in need of our help and our support. So I want to do a quick plug for ISF, the Islamic Scholarship Fund. I'm very grateful for their support. They gave me a scholarship to go to graduate school in 2015 and 2016. Graduate school is very expensive, so any amount of financial support helps. And ISF not only gave me support financially, but they have supported me and continue to support me through their mission. And if you haven't heard of Islamic Scholarship Fund, their vision is a society where religion, culture, and race are not barriers to equality. And they have a mission to actually increase American Muslim representation in media and politics. And as I've said, it's important. Why? Because it improves public opinion and policy. And some of their programs they have are the merit-based scholarships, which you can apply for. They have film grants if you're interested in pursuing film. And if you're interested in policy, they offer fellowships and internships for you to work in Congress. So this is a fantastic opportunity. I put their website on this slide. It's just IslamicScholarshipFund.org, and their applications are opening for the next school year in November. So definitely, bookmark that page, put a reminder in your phone to look up this scholarship. So essentially, what I want you to think about today is about the stories that you have inside of you. And also, what stories do you believe need to be told or told differently? If you're trying to figure out what you want to do next, where to go with your career, take some time to think. I'm someone who loves journaling. I highly recommend it. Take some time out of your day to just flow, like stream of consciousness. What do you want the world to know about you? What is it that you feel like is unique, that you have in your heart, on your mind, that you want to see happen in the world? And do you see things outside of you? Are there things that you notice and care about that you feel like need to be heard, need to be amplified? And do you have skills and do you have a passion to help do something about it? Those are two very important things that I come back to as I think about what I'm doing in my career and why and how I can be of service to humanity. And you're probably thinking like, okay, well, how do I get started? I'm interested in media. Where do I go? What do I do? I don't know anybody in this field. And this is definitely a field where knowing people helps a lot. So never fear, I have some resources for you, and I'm happy to share this with you all as well so you can have access to this. But thankfully, although the field is not incredibly diverse and where it needs to be, there are really wonderful initiatives of writers of different marginalized backgrounds who are coming together to share resources. One of my favorites is a Twitter account called Writers of Color, where they constantly share internships and job opportunities. Another one I really love that I want to shout out is the Muslim American Women in Media group on Facebook. I've met so many amazing women in there. I wish I had known them in college when I was really struggling and didn't know if I was going to make it in this field. and they are able to talk to you about what it's like, opportunities. If you're struggling with something or have a problem, they're there to help you. So it's really important. I highly suggest networking. Another one I'd like to call out is the Voices of Our Nation Arts Foundation. I went to them for a workshop in fiction writing, and I'm making this a very broad presentation on media, but if you're interested in media in a variety of ways, whether it's journalism or film or creative writing, these are all really great resources, and I hope you look at them and reach out to people, because they really do want to help. I think we're part of this generation that didn't have a lot set up for us, and so it's our duty now to help you all make it a lot easier for you to get yourself into this field, because we've gone through it. We know how hard it is, but it's thankfully, alhamdulillah, getting better. So again, I hope you can keep in touch and let me know how I can support you. This is an interesting, dynamic field. Things are changing all the time, especially with the pandemic. It's been tough. A lot of people are, either losing their jobs or struggling to make ends meet. But I want to highlight how there's still so much opportunity, and I don't want you to be afraid of pursuing something that's different. No one in my family is in media. I'm kind of the oddball being interested in writing and creativity and communication. But that shouldn't stop you from pursuing something that you're passionate about. So if this is something you're interested in doing, know that it matters. Your voice matters, your story matters. So please let me know how I can help. As Muslims, we know so much of our lives have been dominated and controlled by media. And it's really important to know that it doesn't have to be that way. You can make a difference. You can tell the story. You can have control of your own story and of your own life. So inshallah, if this is something you're interested in, don't be afraid. There's room for you, and I'm excited to see what you're able to do. And again, let me know how I can support you. I would love to be a part of your story. Thank you. I'm going to stop my
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Sister Naseema. So many powerful points on the importance of storytelling, narrative for precipitating wider cultural change, the importance of media. Your work is sorely needed. May Allah bless you and preserve you in your efforts. Next up, we have Dr. Samira Ahmed. Her session will be entitled Islam, Mental Health, and Misconceptions in College Students. A quick intro to Dr. Samira. Dr. Samira holds a PhD in clinical psychology, has a private clinical practice in Canton, and has taught classes at a variety of universities across the nation. She is known for her contributions in promoting Muslim mental health through the publication of Counseling Muslims, Handbook of Mental Health Issues and Interventions, the most cited, internationally known academic book on Muslim mental health. Dr. Ahmed is also a leading expert on American Muslim youth and has produced numerous groundbreaking publications, including The State of American Muslim Youth, Uplifting Black Muslim Youth, and Prevalence of Risk Behaviors of U.S. Muslim College Students. Also, again, as a plug, she has also served as Vice President for MSA National. Dr. Ahmed, it is a pleasure to have you here today. The floor is yours.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. It is truly an honor to be with all of you today. I wish we were in person, but alhamdulillah ala kulli hal. COVID conditions have made a lot of things difficult, and we're all trying to adjust as best as we can. So alhamdulillah, may Allah make it easy for all of us. But when you think about kind of what's going on and how we're experiencing the world around us, we recognize that this experience is not the same for everyone. In many ways, it's analogous to the mental health realities that many of us are facing. And so it's like seeing two people run a race, right? Two people, one individual has perhaps a 50-pound bag on their back, and another person is running weight-free. And this is what mental health issues look like in terms of how someone has to deal with. They're running life's race carrying that extra 50 pounds. And so they may not know that they're actually running with the extra 50 pounds. And so when they're running and they're seeing everybody else around them, they look and they see, well, they're running faster. they're getting to where they want to go. Why can't I? And so they began to start thinking that maybe this is my fault. Maybe this is my issue. And so that 50-pound bag then becomes 60, 70 pounds. And then all of those who are kind of watching that person with the 50-pound bag run, they may notice a difference, right? They may see that, yeah, it's taking them a little bit longer. It's taking them slower to get what everybody else is able to do. And so one of the things that you want to ask yourself, are people stopping and asking? Are they, wanting to know, hey, is there anything I can do to help? Asking question, what's going on? Asking them, even if, do you want someone to kind of walk with you on your journey so that they don't have to be alone, right? So these are some of the challenges that Muslims with mental health issues are facing. We've really stopped living the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that, the hadith that says the believers are in their affection and their mercy and compassion for each other are like one body. When any one part of the limb or the body aches, the whole body reacts with sleeplessness and fever. And so mental health impacts everyone, everyone listening here today. It may be you who may be struggling. It may be someone you love. But we need to recognize that Muslims are not immune to mental illness. Why else would the Prophet ﷺ encourage us to make the famous dua, Allahumma inni a'udhu bika min al-hammi wal hazan? Oh God, I seek refuge in you from worry and sadness, right? Because anxiety and depression is a human condition that can happen to anyone, and it's not a reflection of one's iman or faith. The Prophet Muhammad ﷺ and the early generation of Muslims recognized this fact and then this reality. But they didn't kind of just sit there and be like, oh, well, this is it. They recognize that this is an issue. There are treatments, and we're going to take a step forward and really make sure that we're at the forefront of addressing mental health. And some of the work that we've done has really identified what was that historical contributions that Muslims have done. And it's important for us to understand, because if we don't know our legacy and if we don't understand our legacy, we can't learn and grow from it. We can't remember the fact that we used to be at the forefront of mental health, and that we have the potential and the ability to solve mental health stigma. We have the ability and we have the ingredients. And so at the Family and Youth Institute, our sole purpose is to empower you with the knowledge and resources so that you can make a difference, right? We need to be the change we want in our communities. We want to be at the forefront, making those changes, reducing mental health stigma, increasing our ability to live healthier lives. And we have the ingredients. And so how do we do this, right? We need to start with 3 simple tasks. First of all, recognize that knowledge is power, right? So get educated. As college students, take the classes in developmental and abnormal psychology, marriage and family. They exist on campus. Even if it's not in your field, use it as your gen ed electives and use them wisely, because this information is something that's going to be helpful for not only you in your life, but for those around you. Similarly, at the Family and Youth Institute, we also share bite-sized information to increase your mental health knowledge over time. And so when you do that, when you're increasing your knowledge, you're then able to make change. So one of the things that I highly recommend you do is to really read the information, understand and increase your awareness about mental health. And so you can do that by following us on Instagram or Twitter so that you can learn and grow. But after you start getting educated, and this is a long-term lifetime process that we're always needing to learn about, we also need to simultaneously become mental health advocates, right? And this movement to eliminate mental health stigma, to increase our community's well-being, it needs change makers. So be amongst the sabiqun, right? The ones who are at the forefront of doing good, seeking Allah's pleasure, making a difference. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has already promised us that the sabiqun, that their reward is Jannatul Firdaus. Be greedy in getting good deeds and getting ajr. And it's so easy to be a mental health advocate, right? All you have to do is just share the mental health information and resources that you see and share it on social media. Share it in your conversations at the MSA with everyone you know, people you meet regularly, anyone who's willing to listen, just share that information. And by sharing mental health resources, you're initiating positive change, right? You're identifying yourself as a mental health advocate. You're showing people that you are someone who cares and you want to make a difference. And by sharing these resources, especially the ones from the Family and Youth Institute, you know you're covered, right? It's been curated by a clinical team. You know the individuals that the information that you're sharing, it's not junk science. And unfortunately, there's a lot of that out there. But you know that information is reliable and practical. So share that information. Your actions can really guide people who are silently struggling. You know, I can't tell you how many times people have shared with me, thank you for sharing. Thank you for sharing with that information with me. And just last week, right? I had shared resources on suicide prevention that the Family and Youth Institute had shared. It's Suicide Prevention Week and Month. And so when I shared that, I got a thank you call. Say, you know what, subhanAllah, because you sent that information, I knew that the Muslim community has a resource that really helps guide us through these issues. And she had a friend, my friend had a friend who came and thanked me. And she was saying that, look, this friend of mine was having suicidal thoughts and I knew where to go. I got the resources. I followed the infographic and I was able to get my friend some help. And to me, this is such a simple act of getting the resources to people. And half the time, you don't even know who's struggling. And so, really, these are hidden ajr opportunities to gain reward that sometimes you may not know the seeds that you are planting. So, take that opportunity. And the third thing that we can all do is increase community and campus programming. And so in your MSAs, discuss mental health khutbahs, in your programming, and you'll see a difference. You'll see, in 10 years in our community, we've noticed that people have gone from not wanting to talk about mental health to now mental health providers are overloaded, which is great, alhamdulillah. Make sure on campus that you contact, the MSA is contacting and working with the counseling center. Develop a relationship with them. Make sure that they know how to work with Muslim students. And if they don't, let them know that there are resources for them, right? I've edited a book on counseling Muslims. This is specifically for individuals who may not be familiar and have the cultural competency training. We have that specifically for them. Let them know that exists. And we have a ton of more resources. We have resources on suicide, grief, really helping people understand that these resources are available. It's just a matter of accessing them. So find out from the counseling center, what do they need? Connect them with the resources that are already available. And then find out what are the resources that the counseling center already provides. And let people know in your MSA that these resources are available. Advertise them, invite them over, because sometimes just knowing who's at the counseling center really makes a difference. So those are some of the things that you can do with the counseling center. Similarly, have more intense training for your MSA leaders, not just the execs, but anyone who's highly involved in the MSA, anyone who's interacting with other students on campus. I remember when I was on the MSA exec at our MSA, and when I was starting Islam Awareness Week and the VP for MSA National, I can't tell you how many issues that were mental health related that people were struggling with. And frankly, at that point, I didn't know what to do. They weren't resources. But now, alhamdulillah, there are a ton of resources that we have that we can support you and empower you to really make a difference. So really prepare your next exec committee. Make sure that they have the knowledge, they have the resources, and to help support your community on campus. And we have workshops available for the MSAs that we can work with you to help understand, one, basic information about mental health, but also, what are the resources and what are the issues that most people may have on campus? Let you know that these things are freely available. You can just share it with your community. And so really knowing what resources are available is going to be really important. Part of it is just asking, because we're here to empower you, and most of the issues and challenges that you're seeing, either we know where to get, and we can get it to you. And if you just contact us at the FYI, we can get that to you as soon as possible. And so, there's a lot that we can do. And part of it is recognizing that, this work, there's so much that can be done. And if we just work together, that these efforts can have a collective enormous impact at reducing stigma, at raising awareness. And so I'm asking you to join me in this movement to eliminate mental health stigma among Muslims by, one, committing to increasing your personal mental health awareness, right? 2, become mental health advocates. 3, increase mental health programming in your communities. And to be successful, this has to be a movement of people working together to make a difference, people who are working hard to reach and obtain the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who want to be amongst the sabiqun. So I invite you to work with us at the Family and Youth Institute and be part of the change. Join us and make a difference today, because you have no idea how much of a difference one person can make, and your efforts can save a life. Right? So I ask you to help us make that difference, work together, and let's reduce mental health stigma in our communities. Let's strengthen and empower our communities, and let our communities be stronger, healthier communities, inshallah. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to help all who are suffering silently to get the help that they need and to decrease their pain. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to increase our knowledge, our understanding, so that we can be more sensitive and supportive to all those who may be struggling. And that He honors us and continues to honor us to be amongst the sabiqun, to help to lead the positive change in our community and to get the ajr for it. And to be able to look on the Day of Judgment and see and recognize that these efforts that we have made are because of the mental health advocacy that we have done in this dunya. Ya Allah, give us the patience and perseverance for this work, and let us reap the benefit of our efforts in this world and the akhirah. Jazakallahu khair. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Thank you. Jazakallah, Dr. Samira, for that beautiful, beautiful talk. Your work has helped, I know firsthand, when we were advocating for mental health resources on our campus and across different MSAs, and I know it's benefited a lot of other students as well. So may Allah preserve you and bless you in this world and in the hereafter. Next up, we have a session entitled Using the Power of Your Voice by Sister Israa Shakur. As way of a quick intro, Sister Israa is a Syrian-American civil rights activist, humanitarian advocate, and public speaker. She serves as the Senior Refugee Migration and Protection Campaign Lead at one of the leading international NGOs in the world, Oxfam America, where she uses her expertise in managing campaigns to advocate for vulnerable people such as refugees and oppose discriminatory policies such as the Muslim ban. In addition, Israa was recently chosen as an icon for the We the Future campaign by Amplifier, which recognizes 10 young activists from across the United States in their leading work on current social justice issues affecting humanity. Sister Israa, it is a pleasure to have you join us today. The floor, inshallah, is yours.
Jazakallah khair. And I just want to also extend my sincerest thank you to Sister Samira for that incredible talk and for giving all those amazing pointers and advocating for our mental health. So thank you, Jazakallah khair. May Allah reward you and everyone else who does that incredible work. My name is Israa Shakur, and I'm so honored to be here with you all today. This is an incredible experience for me because, a while ago, I was also on college campus, also involved in my MSA. And so to be able to come back and speak to students that are involved in MSAs especially is very important for me. I've spent a lot of time over the past couple of years talking to MSAs and talking to chapters across the country. And I can tell you that I've seen firsthand the incredible work that you all do, the energy, the effort, and the time that you put in really does reap a huge impact. So I want to first commend you all for all the work that you're doing. Thank you for what you're doing. And please, even in these strange times of being all virtual and things really just shifting, continue to find opportunities to engage in these ways. Growing up visibly Muslim in Midwest America, Boulder, Colorado to be exact, I felt like an outsider and that I didn't belong. Even though I was born like everyone else, I spoke like everyone else, but because I didn't look like everyone else, I was made to feel not as American as everyone else. In high school, specifically, I was the only hijabi in a school of about 3,000 students. And I stood out like a sore thumb. Almost instantly, the bullying began, being called derogatory names like terrorist, being told to go back to where I came from. Little did they understand that that was actually the hospital down the road. Being told that my family didn't belong here, that we weren't welcomed here. Having students poke at my head with a stick walking down the hallways, having students trying to rip off my hijab as I would walk through different classes. The bullying got so bad that I truly believed that I didn't see myself staying in this school, that I didn't know how to continue to try to get an education and have, a normal teenage experience like every other 14-year-old was having. And it came to a point where I had to decide what I was going to do. Was I going to remove myself from the school and become homeschooled like the very few Muslim students in our community, many of them were? Was I going to, not be as visibly Muslim because then it would make people comfortable and stop the bullying and attacks? Maybe it wouldn't. I just didn't know what to do at 14 years old. But I realized that there was an opportunity for me, and that was to do something about it and to take action to change the status quo. So I decided what was going to be my most powerful tool to be able to change the way the culture was at the school, because I was sure it wasn't just me who was being bullied, right? I knew that if you were diverse in any way, for whatever identity, you were being targeted in the school. And so I decided to use my most powerful tool, my voice, to do something about it. I created something called Diversity Panel. Diversity Panel is as cliche as it sounds, but I was 14 at the time. And it was essentially any student who was different in any way and was made to feel less than human, less than valuable, less than important because of their identities, to come together and to share our stories directly, and to have a space where we felt safe enough to share our stories in hopes of making the school one that was better, making the school one where people felt welcomed, where people felt safe, where people felt celebrated for their identities and what they brought to the table, versus being attacked and discriminated against because of it. So I really went around and I chose students who, again, were diverse in some way, who felt that they also had been bullied and wanted to see a difference in the school. And we came together with the help of a guidance counselor, and we started doing incoming orientation classes where we would do these panels. So as part of incoming freshman classes, you would sit there for orientation. And one of the things you had to do as part of orientation was attend diversity panel. And we sat just like that on a panel in front of a group of students, and we all shared our stories. And everybody shared whatever they felt comfortable sharing of their experiences. And they talked about how their identity, whether it was racial, ethnic, religious, ability, it didn't matter to us. All were welcomed to come share their experiences. And the impact of the actions of other people because of their identities had on them, and the bullying had on them. And after we shared our stories, a guidance counselor would come and facilitate a conversation with the students to see basically how people give their feedback and their thoughts and their feelings and reactions to everything. And I am not lying when I say that instantly we saw these walls of ignorance and hate and honestly misunderstanding fall down, and these bridges of love and acceptance being built to replace them. We had students identify as bullies in the audience. Maybe not, they'd not bully the people that are in the room, but I've bullied people like people in the room with those identities. And they had a really, incredible reaction saying that I've learned my lesson. I'm recognizing that I shouldn't have done what I've been doing. And now I see the other side of what my actions have as an impact. And they would commit to not doing that anymore. We had other students who talked about how they've been bullied, like, and had similar experiences that many of us shared on the panel, but not because, for example, they're Muslim like me, but because they were a different ethnicity, right, or a different race. And we started to see that there was so much similarity in our experiences, but also so much power in owning our narrative and sharing our story, that diversity panel was so successful that the principal asked us to share our stories to everybody and not just incoming freshman classes. So by the time I graduated, I had shared my story to over 3,000 students. And diversity panel really was a place where I was able to find my voice. I finally felt like the campus culture, the school culture was one of acceptance. And when I graduated, I remember saying in my remarks at graduation that when I first walked into the school, I couldn't have felt more like an outsider. But by the time I graduated, I felt like I had finally found a place for me, a place for people to feel accepted and welcomed. And so obviously I didn't recognize at the time that that was my first experience with advocacy and with activism or campaigning in any way. And when I went to college, I was sitting there thinking, what am I going to study in college? I have no idea, what I would be good at. And I recognized that one of the ways that I was doing in college, one thing that I was doing in college was, well, in high school, I was dealing with this was sketching. I did a lot of drawing to sort of help me find a release and a way to express myself with all that I was going through. People do journaling, I did sketching, and I was pretty good at it. So I decided that maybe architecture was the way to go because I wanted to create the spaces, right, that brought community together where people will feel welcomed. And I thought, that coupled with my love for drawing, I was going to do it. So I studied architecture, and in my college experience, studying architecture, I quickly realized that I wanted to be more actively engaged in what was happening on campus. And we had similar issues to what I had in high school: a lack of diversity, lack of inclusion, lack of representation, lack of funding for minority groups, including MSA and including different student groups that were focused on supporting minority communities. And I quickly realized there was an opportunity for me to engage. So I ran for student government. And I became the president of the architecture school, which meant that I got to be a senator on the school of, on the Intelligent University. And I quickly realized, being a senator on the university student government, that there was a lot of opportunity to make a difference. And there was a lot of discrimination happening against students of color and Black students and other students who, again, came from vulnerable communities. And I realized that this is an opportunity for me to play. So I got involved in campus politics. I started running campaigns, and we had a lot of ups and downs, and I'll get to that story hopefully another time with you all. But ultimately, I realized that that is my place. I found my voice in that way, and I realized that I could create change by bringing communities and people together for that impact. So I quickly realized that I was not going to be an architect full time after college. But of course, coming from a family of immigrants who worked really hard to get me through college, I didn't have the privilege to start over again. And so I decided I was going to finish my education with architecture, but I'd pursue a different opportunity after. So I decided to be an activist. And I told my parents that I was a social advocate, a social architect, someone who brought people together and created change. And of course, at first, they said that that didn't exist and that I should probably think about dentistry, which I'm sure a lot of us have experienced with our parents. But when they saw how committed I was to creating social change and making a positive impact, they supported me. And that is what has led me to the career that I am living today. And living in the current state of the world of affairs today, I see challenges that seem to be big and impossible, especially for youth to change. Youth are experiencing the negative consequences of discriminatory policies and rhetoric. And while the world feels overwhelming for many of us and out of our control, what is in our control is that how we react to these and respond to these challenges. And as youth, you need to recognize that your voice matters and it can move mountains. No matter what anyone tells you, your opinions, your passions, your identities, and dreams matter and need to be heard, fostered, and encouraged by your family, by your friends, by your community. So don't be scared to take action. Change won't happen until we all play our role individually and collectively to make it happen. Don't doubt yourself. Don't give up. Participate in making a positive change. There's so much that you can do in your MSA and on campus. There's so many ways to engage. Change is anywhere and everywhere you see an opportunity. That includes everything that you can imagine in your communities and your families and your schools, offline and online. Show up for your community, not just your Muslim community, but humanity overall. Be an active ally or accomplice, as we like to call it, who recognizes your privilege and mobilizes it and mobilizes yourselves and others to commit to supporting others in their fight. Showing up can look like attending a virtual rally, attending a virtual event, organizing a get out the vote exercise, making sure people get out the vote in your local community, finding ways to donate to different causes of humanitarian crises happening around the world, constantly learning and staying engaged on current and historical injustices, and on amplifying the voices of those directly impacted by those injustices. There are infinite ways to take action. I wish I could get into that longer here, but I know that we're limited on time. But I really just want to reiterate one more message to you all, and I hope to stay connected with you all after this, is that we need you. You are our anchor. That is not a cliche statement. I used to believe that my voice didn't matter. I used to believe that as youth, we were told that we didn't belong, that we should listen to our elders, that we had no space for us. But when you create that space and when you're passionate about your voice and you continue to persist, people will listen and change will happen. So you are the hope that will lead future generations in light, justice, and equality. Please stay in touch with me. If you need any guidance or any support on things that you want to do with your on your campus, I'm at Israa Speaks on social media. I look forward to staying in touch with you all. And I just look forward to seeing all the incredible things you continue to do this year and taking the challenges that we're facing and making the most of them. Jazakallahu khair.
Jazakallahu khair. Thank you so much, Sister Israa. Your story about facing that pain and fear and anger and hatred and converting that into something beautiful that benefits not just yourself, but all those around you. I think that resonates with a lot of us. May we be able to also do something similar. Thank you so much. Before we move on to our next session and our next speaker, we are going to play a short video from one of our sponsors, ISF, the Islamic Scholarship Fund. They were given a shout out earlier in this program. So inshallah, this will be a sort of a deeper introduction into the organization and what they do.
Imagine a world where religion, culture, and race are no longer barriers to equality. ISF is achieving this dream by increasing American Muslim representation and professions that have the highest impact on public policy and public opinion. This is critical to ensuring that different communities obtain equal rights. As of this year, ISF has awarded over $1.3 million to current and future leaders in the field of media, public policy, film, and academia. 400 scholarships, film grants, congressional internships, and congressional fellowships. ISF alumni are agents of change at the epicenter of public and political influence. They are changing the status quo by telling our story and fighting unjust policies. ISF's alumni have published books, produced films and documentaries, established and are running nonprofits, advocated for the rights of marginalized communities, and so much more. This has all been made possible not only by the recipients themselves, but also with the help of support networks that include families, volunteers, and importantly, the donors and supporters. Together, they make up the ISF family, united on a journey to make the United States a more inclusive country. We welcome you to join.
Okay, thank you for that. Let me go ahead and introduce our next session and our next speaker. Our session is entitled, Why Does God Allow Suffering? Our speaker that is joining us today is Imam Khalid Latif. As a way of a quick intro, Imam Khalid Latif is a university chaplain for NYU and executive director of the Islamic Center at NYU. Under his leadership, the Islamic Center at NYU became the first ever established Muslim student center at an institution of higher education in the US. He has been named a global interfaith visionary by the United Nations Temple of Understanding and one of the 500 most influential Muslims in the world by Georgetown University's Prince Al-Walid bin Talal Center. He received an honorary doctorate of theology from Washington and Jefferson College, the MLK Humanitarian Award from NYU, and most recently a Distinguished Alumni Award from the Ward Law and Partridge School. Imam Khalid, it is a pleasure to have you here today with us. The floor, inshallah, is yours.
Jazakallah khair. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Bismillah. Bismillah walhamdulillah. Wassalatu wassalam ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man wala. All praise is due to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We thank him, we praise him, we glorify him. Beseech him to send his choicest salutations upon his most beloved sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa sallam, and upon all those who choose to tread in his path until the last day. This question of why does God allow suffering can be answered in a lot of different ways. And in the time that we have, I wanted us to think about it in two frames: individual suffering, as well as understanding how to engage with those around us that might be suffering. Fundamental to the conversation around why does God allow suffering requires us to understand what some of these words mean in the first place. We are creatures who become subservient to language. And we find this even within the Quranic framework. وَعَلَّمَ آدَمَ الْأَسْمَاءَ كُلَّهَا. Allah says that Adam was taught the names of everything, but the way that we understand things and deepen in our sense of understanding is by recognizing meaning through names. And so the challenge that we fall into quite often is that concrete meaning is not given to us when it comes to certain integral parts of our life. The way that somebody taught you 2 + 2 = 4, or the way that you know that when someone says the word book or the word laptop or the word live stream, it gives you an understanding that you can automatically tap into. When I say cell phone, you don't have to go through a really deep, convoluted definition in the series of words. I don't say, hand me the mobile apparatus or the cellular apparatus that connects me to a mobile network of millions of people around the world. I say, just give me the phone and you know what it means. But now when I say a word like love or forgiveness or mercy or integrity or pain, suffering, healing, compassion, what do these words mean? And quite often they carry a certain ambiguity for a lot of us. That the way that we learn it is not the same way that somebody taught us 2 + 2 = 4, but we learn it experientially. There's not a lot of discussion or a lot of theory or a lot of practice or room for questions. And the word suffering itself, it also necessitates understanding the importance of giving it a definition. We can attach it to pain. We can attach it to pain that is drawn through something experientially. But I would argue that as we start to define it, we want to move away from associating it with all forms of pain and recognizing it in the prism of internalized or inward emotional pain, spiritual pain, mental pain, as opposed to simply just physical pain. And then when we start to break it down in terms of individual understandings, when we are speaking to ourselves or speaking to others, the idea is to not speak in platitudes. You're not going to be able to answer this question of why does God allow for suffering through the framework of statements that don't really carry any substance to them. Put your faith in God, have trust in God. Ideas like this might resonate in temporary settings, or they might give us a sense of inspiration when we are engaged in a lecture-based format of thousands in an audience and a speaker who is talking. But when it comes to dealing with the realities of life, you can't deal with reality in a platitudinal way. The idea of understanding where and how we relate to suffering that we go through requires us to understand that first and foremost, it's okay to say that certain things are hard and difficult. Ours is not a tradition that tells us that we are devoid of human engagement of certain things. But the way we relate to suffering becomes distinct from the way the rest of creation relates to anything that it has going on. Because I'm only human becomes again language that we are subservient to. Versus Allah saying to us in the Quran, وَلَقَدْ كَرَمْنَا بَنِي آدَمَ, that all of the children of Adam are given dignity and they're elevated. لَقَدْ خَلَقْنَا الْإِنسَانَ فِي أَحْسَنِ تَقْوِيمٍ, that we have created humanity in the most beautiful of forms. So the embracing of it now is to see fundamentally that my engagement of it has to be distinct from habitual instinctive reactions. And I embrace not as a response that justifies succumbing to, but looking for a distinction that is rooted in me being different from the rest of creation as a human, saying that I'm not only human, but I am human. And how do I approach anything that comes to me of this world? We are not a people who adopt a nihilistic approach to life that says it's without meaning or purpose. But every step that we take in dunya is a step that brings us closer to our ultimate destination. May Allah make us people of Jannah. But the steps can be steps of remembrance or steps of forgetfulness. And now when suffering comes into play, we understand, just like with everything, we have opportunity to draw a deeper sense of purpose and meaning through it. But to wait for a moment of suffering to try to understand meaning and purpose is going to make it that much harder to understand what meaning and purpose is. But to preemptively approach a conversation that understands that we will have some mode of suffering in our existence. You're going to feel the loss of a loved one. Mortality is a part of our existence. It's there and it's inevitable. The reaction is not to be devoid of human emotion. Be sad. The Prophet ﷺ cried tears as his son Ibrahim passed and took his last breaths in front of him. Abdurrahman ibn Auf says to him, "O Messenger of God, what is this?" And he says, "This is mercy, ya Ibn Auf." But the idea is to say, well, what's the point of all of it? As the place of just stability, how do I draw meaning and purpose from what it is that surrounds me? And then when something difficult interjects itself, I start to sense how I can attach that sense of meaning and purpose to this as well. And that's there's the interest of time to shift now to a space of how we exist within the framework of others. Because ours is a tradition that emphasizes compassion. I studied Latin for about 7 years for some reason. And in Latin, the word compassion etymologically comes from the Latin word cum, which means with, and it comes from the Latin word pati, which means suffering. That compassion is to be with someone in their suffering. And again, the same idea, the way that you can understand empathetically in a mode of self-love and self-patience and self-forgiveness, that you can take yourself to limits, embrace your humanity and everything Allah made you with, to say that I will overcome suffering, I will overcome obstacles, I will overcome what's ahead of me. You walk with gentleness and compassion with somebody in their suffering. Because you can't explain somebody else's pains or feelings away. The innate desire to problem solve or come up with solutions is not how it is that we respond actively to this question of why does God allow suffering? You don't want to answer it for somebody just in the prism of words. You want to answer it in the prism of actions. You let God be God and you be you. And you say that fundamentally, theologically, there's certain questions that the only answer that we can give is, I don't know. I don't know why you in specific don't have as much food as the person down the street. I don't know why you might have had a single parent home or an abusive reality. I don't know why there's famine, why there's natural disaster. In the specificity of it, I will not throw platitudes at you, but I will understand that Allah to me is still a God who is a God I have hope in, a God I draw strength from, a God that I believe loves me more than a mother loves its child. And even where I don't know why something might transpire in the way that it does, I still believe in that God because I know that God believes in me and believes in you. And I'm here in an empathetic mode to walk with you in your suffering, the way compassion is meant to be. الراحمون يرحمهم الرحمن ارحموا من في الأرض يرحمكم من في السماء. That the merciful one is merciful to those who are merciful. Be merciful on the earth. The one who is in the heavens will be merciful to you. The hadith of Rahmah is the first hadith that we're taught. You gotta have compassion with people. And empathy gives the deepest indication and epitomizes selflessness. Ours is not an egocentric religion, it's a God-centric religion. And within it, you get to a sphere of relating now to someone by saying that I don't have any idea how I might be able to really relate what you're going through to something I'm going through. That there's certain things that some of us see that the rest of us will not see. And there's certain things that some of us go through that the rest of us will not go through. But my empathy necessitates me suspending the ego in every which way, along with whatever feeds and fuels it. And I relate to you simply through your experiences. And I pay attention, I absorb, I validate and affirm feelings. And I don't just simply answer questions that I don't have a direct answer to. My direct answer renders passivity on my part, where I should be walking with you through your struggle and suffering, not separating myself from it. If you have difficulty in your life right now, it's okay to take a moment to just breathe and to see what's ahead. It doesn't come always instantaneous. Have a process of self-care and objective spaces of self-expression for your healing, so that you can find meaningful growth through the challenges that come. And where you have the ability to walk with someone through their suffering, don't give answers to their pain. Give empathy, give support, give real love. Walk in the prophetic footsteps in that way. Inshallah ta'ala, in the midst of the darkness that many of us find ourselves in, you can be a source of real light and illumination for someone in a way that will help change their perspective on reality that they could never imagine was possible. And just in closing, I'm sorry I just saw the screen, forgive me for that. If I can ever be helpful to any of you in anything you have going on, please don't hesitate in reaching out. But if this is the only time that we are meant to share space together, your du'as, you and your loved ones will be in mind. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guide us and protect us. May He bless us with knowledge that benefits us. May He bless us with the tawfiq to understand and implement that knowledge into our daily lives. May He guide and bless us all. Wallahu ta'ala alam wa billahi tawfiq. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuhu.
Jazakallah. Thank you for those beautiful words, Imam Khalid. There's so much wisdom in what you shared about not just the wisdom engage with people who are going through before our first break for an hour. After this, we will begin at 2:30, but inshallah, we are joined by a very, very amazing speaker. The session title is Black Muslim Lives Matter. We are joined by Dr. Nisa Mohammed. As a way of a quick intro, Dr. Nisa is the Assistant Dean for Religious Life at Howard University. There, she's responsible for religious programming that serves the various needs of the campus, advocates for the religious needs of a diverse student population, and helps Muslim services and other events and initiatives there. She is the president of the Association of Muslim Chaplains and the new member representative on the executive board of the National Association of Campus and University Chaplains. Dr. Nisa, it is an honor and pleasure to have you here with us today. The floor, inshallah, is yours.
Let me unmute. Thank you. Wonderful. Assalamu alaikum. I'm so happy to be here for your audience. And I know some of my students from Howard University are watching. So we're so excited to be here. So let me start. I have a short presentation that I want to share with you. I'm going to share my screen. Okay, nope, let's go back some. Let's go back to the beginning. So, can everyone see that? So, as you mentioned, my topic is Black Muslim Lives Matter, Dr. Nisa Mohammed, and thank you so much for the invitation to be a part of this awesome conference. So, as he mentioned, I'm the Assistant Dean for Religious Life at Howard University, and I have the privilege of working with students that you see just like this in the picture here. This is some of our students from pre-COVID, of course, one of our first MSA meetings. So I want to start with this verse from the Quran where it talks about, "O mankind, we have indeed created you from male and female and made you peoples and tribes that you may know one another." And so the question that I want to pose to the students that are listening, how well do we know each other? So Black Muslim students arrive on campus ready and willing to go, to explore, to enjoy, to engage with Muslims from all around the world. And they are very excited to, in fact, be there. However, at predominantly white institutions, which is PWIs, they often experience exclusion. How could that be when they're around Muslims? Many feel left out and alone. They feel marginalization. They feel like their issues are not as important or as Islamic, so to speak, as other issues. They may be interested in issues in terms of around police brutality. They may be interested in doing something around the whole George Floyd issue. And this is a very recent case where I talked to students from different MSAs, and they were trying to organize the MSAs around the issue around George Floyd's murder. I mean, his tragic murder. And some of the students in the MSA were like, why? What does it have to do with us? Is that really Islamic? And it's very sad if, as Muslims, we don't see the oppression of Black people as being Islamic. So sometimes they feel like they are outsiders. They feel invisible, like they're outsiders in their own faith. And they also experience what are called microaggressions. Black Muslims are asked, are you a convert? Are you in the nation? Are you in the Imam's community? Now, how many of you, if you're South Asian, Arab, or you're from another other country, how many of you have ever been asked that question? Are you a convert? So, no, that question is solely reserved for Black Muslims, and it's really an insult. What difference does it make if we are a convert or we are not a convert? We are Muslims. We believe in Allah. We believe in the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So why continue to ask us, are you a convert? It's very, very insulting. And so often, Black Muslims are faced with having to choose between race and religion. When the MSA they are a part of doesn't seem to be a good fit, they then turn to either the Black Student Union or the African Students Association where they are accepted because of their race, but really they want race and religion. So we're going to hear from Aminata. Aminata is a student. She's going to share her experience of being Black and Muslim. I'm sorry, whoops, pressed the wrong button. Okay, here we go, Aminata.
2, 1. Hello, my name is Aminata. I'm a sophomore at NYU studying childhood and special education, minoring in global and urban education studies, as well as social and public policy. And for me, being Black and Muslim at a predominantly white institution like NYU is particularly challenging because I often feel like I have to choose between the two identities. And it's just like going to BSU with the events led by the Black Student Union and being the only Muslim, in many cases the only hijabi, but in other cases going to the Muslim Students Association and being one of a few Black people there. So in that case, it's very challenging, but I've learned over the past year to appreciate both identities and that I don't have to choose between one over the other, and that can equally that both can be equally important to me. And it's also just like you're talking to both communities and having them knowing that like when it comes to these issues that affect me the most, that my like the South Asians and the Arabs at the MSA are standing right behind me. But on the other hand, when I'm at the BSU and I have issues and there are issues that affect many Muslims, that I have groups like those right behind me and are supportive and are communicating with each other.
Okay. So the problems at NYU got so severe with the Black Muslims there and with Aminata especially that they decided to leave the MSA at NYU and create their own institution, which is called the Black Muslim Initiative, which is very sad on one hand, but it became very empowering for the Black Muslim students that they had to start their own organizations because they did not feel like they got justice or equality or freedom or even were received as Muslims in the MSA. So generally, when there are Black conversations, they rarely include topics around Black Muslims. And that also happens when there are Muslim conversations. These Muslim conversations also rarely include topics that concern Black Muslims. So where do Black Muslims fall? They're kind of left in the breach somewhere. You know, they're really not a part of Black America and their conversations all the time. And then when it comes to Muslims, they're generally not included in those conversations either. So where do Black Muslims find their space?
I'm tired of having to explain Islam to people. I'm tired of having to explain why Black Lives Matter to people. I'm not going to sit here and be like, Muslims don't kill people, we're nice, like, because I've been doing that my whole life, and I still get the same BS.
Muslims in America are diverse, but Black Muslims are largely left out of the conversation.
Black kids do not believe me when I say I'm Black, and at the mosque when it's time to pray, sisters slide their feet away from mine.
It's estimated that Black Muslims make up as much as a third of all Muslims in the U.S., and about 40% of American-born Muslims are Black, more than any other race. The Muslim population in the U.S. overall is pretty small, but growing.
Get a lot of people that are kind of so ingrained in their culture that and their biases that interacting with Black Muslims is like something they don't usually do.
We're for democracy and everyone here is equal and, you know, you're free to do whatever you want, but that's not necessarily the case.
Even many American-based Muslim advocacy groups inadvertently focus on immigrants and Arab Muslims living in the U.S.
Black Muslims that I've spoken to have felt like Muslims of other races don't want to engage with Black Muslims. So like, I would say we have a lot to work on in terms of like race and getting over cultural boundaries.
When it comes to identity, almost half of American Muslims see themselves as Muslim first, American second. That's pretty common for other religious groups in the U.S.
But only being a Muslim, not only being a Muslim American, being Somali, being black, being young, there's a lot of identities that you have to reconcile.
Although Islam and being African American are very big parts of my identity, I think people need to stop and realize that that's not all that there is to me. People get so hung up on what they think they know, that they fail to see the whole person. And honestly, that's probably the biggest thing that's like a loss on both sides.
For Newsy, I'm Melissa Prax.
I'm tired of having to explain Islam to people.
Yes, I am black and Muslim, Muslim and black. Rock my hijabs and head wraps. Bow my head when I pray, say Ameen and Ashe. My identity is not always received in the best way. Like when I say salam to those of a different race, the look on their face says my skin invalidates my faith. What a shame. When they call on his names, do they also utter Abid for people like me? Are their minds so distorted by white supremacy that they can't see my humanity? Being black and Muslim is having to explain your very existence from day to day. It's having to say you didn't convert, you were born this way. You feel obligated to teach, but people don't read the holy text, only knowing a few hadiths, but still they have the nerve to be the haram police, never to practice what they preach. When you're black and Muslim, it's a constant fight for the spotlight, a struggle to coexist. In Juma prayers, for instance, open hands for the oppressed worldwide, closed mouths for blacks brutalized.
I've been caught in fire. I stayed down the other night. I've been caught in fire. I stayed down. Well, knowing what the truth I've been caught.
Does our empathy lie in a box in between color lines for a chosen few? Did Allah not make us all equal? Can we cry for Trayvon Martin and Gaza, Michael Brown and Chapel Hill? When you're black and Muslim, you feel conflicted. You know a prophet is falsely depicted. Blonde hair and blue eyes not in the description, but your loved ones hold on to what's been given. So truth is buried and the power is hidden. When you're black and Muslim, being unapologetic is a survival tactic. You are connected. Moorish science and the NOI are to be respected. Movements that help raise a people so their way of life could be corrected, guided to become more than they ever expected. Yes, I am black and Muslim, Muslim and black. Rock my hijabs and head wraps. Bow my head when I pray, say Ameen and Ashe. I've learned to embrace both parts of me. They now coexist in perfect harmony. Black and Muslim, two identities which perfectly complement me.
Okay, so the problem that Black Muslim students face on college campuses around the country has become such a problem that it's reached a national level. And so this is a copy of a news article that PBS wrote about the two-pronged fight for solidarity that Black Muslims face. And this came out in 2016. That was 4 years ago. The problem has not gotten much better since, now that we are in 2020. So this is a picture of Black Muslim students seeking unity. These young women were at the National Muslim Women's Summit at Harvard University. Out of all the women that came, there were these 6 Black Muslim young women that were there, and they immediately gravitated toward one another. One was from Howard University, the one on the left, and the other students went to predominantly white institutions. And because there's so few, they immediately gravitated to one another. And you see what they did. They put the fist up for Black power because that's what they want to symbolize, and that's what they want people to know, that as Black Muslims, we have some power also, and that we're not invisible, we're not to be marginalized, but we have power ourselves. So that's the problem. Now, let's have some solutions. We know that this problem is not the way of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, because he was a man of inclusion, he was a man of diversity. And so ask yourself, on your campus, who gives the Juma khutbah and who are the speakers? Have you ever had a Black imam come and give a khutbah? Have you had a Black khatib? Here are some names of some people who could come and give a lecture at your university. Very qualified, highly recognized Black Islamic scholars. Dr. Suad Al-Kabir, she wrote the book Muslim Cool. Dr. Sherman Jackson wrote the book Islam and the Black American. Dr. Rudolph Ware, he's the author of the book The Walking Quran. Ustada Aisha Prime, who is widely famous and loved all around the country. Invite Black people to your campus because it shows if you only have Arabs and South Asians do your speaking and your khatibs, what message is that given? What is the subtle subliminal message about who is an Islamic authority? That message is widely heard by students, even though it is an unspoken message. Diversify your menu. Everybody is not interested in South Asian or Middle Eastern food. Mac and cheese, bean pies, pizza. To have a menu that is applicable to all the students that is in your group. Have a session on being Black and Muslim to give voice to these challenges. Do not act as if these challenges do not exist on your campus. You may think they're not there because no one has brought it to your attention, but I can almost guarantee you that the Black Muslims on your campus are suffering. Engage Black Muslim students. Ask them specifically, what would you like to see in our MSA? If you were a part of this, if you were in the leadership, what would you like to see happen? They have ideas, they are qualified, they want to be involved, but sometimes they just need the invitation to be able to do that. If you are doing community service, do it in the Black community. I was at a conference and someone from the University of Michigan's MSA talked about how they were raising money to send water to Pakistan. It is a very noble effort to send water to Pakistan. The problem is the University of Michigan, this MSA campus is in Detroit. 30 miles down the road is Flint, Michigan, that has had a water problem for years. Why not raise some money and do something for the Black people in Flint, Michigan, who have a consistent water problem? Why not send money down there? But if you don't think of Black people and the oppression that they are under, the racialized white supremacy that they have to undergo as being an issue for Muslims, then you will raise money for water for Pakistan, and Flint, Michigan, right down the road, that has a severe water problem, will not get your aid and assistance. How do you think Black Muslims feel when they know that they are working with an MSA that can raise money for Pakistan, but will do nothing for Flint, Michigan, right down the road? I mean, just think about this. So engage the Black Muslims and do something in the Black community. Whatever you do for the Black community is needed. Food, clothing, whatever kind of programming you have, the Black communities, wherever you are in such dire straits as a result of white supremacy that whatever you do would be a help for them. Have social activities for all. Have social activities that don't require you to be from a specific culture or background to understand what the social activity is all about. For new Muslims that are coming in, for new Muslims who want to be involved in something, if they don't understand the language, if they don't understand the culture, they're not going to want to be involved. They're going to feel like this event is not for me, that you are not making it for all, you're making it for some. But that is not what Islam is all about. We know the Quran came for all, to change all of humanity. We know the Prophet Muhammad came to serve all of humanity, not just some. That Islam is for all of us. And if we don't reflect that, then we are not doing the Islam the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam came to give to the world. We're doing something else. empower Black student leaders. So Yale's current MSA president is a Black Muslim. Now, that may sound amazing to some, but it is. And she has thrived in her MSA. I had an interview with her because my research interests are Black Muslim students and how they respond to the racism they experience, the anti-Blackness they experience on college campuses all around the country. Some Black Muslim students just get so fed up, they just leave and, as I said, start their own organization like NYU did. Columbia has a separate Black Muslim Student Association. I think Rutgers does. And this tends to be the trend, but it doesn't have to be. There are Muslim students associations where Black Muslims are able to thrive. Yale is a classic example. They're doing some amazing things right. And as I said, their MSA president is a Black Muslim. Okay, discuss Islam during Black History Month with Black speakers. Let people know that Islam is not just an immigrant religion. It's not just an immigrant way of life, that it has been a part of Black history from the very beginning. Nearly 25% of the people who came over, of the kidnapped Africans, were Muslims. They were not able to sustain their faith, but they were Muslims. And if we don't let people know this, and maybe we don't know it ourselves, that may be the problem. We don't know it. And so for any of these issues, I am available. I am here to serve you and help you get information. If you need a list of Black khatibs or Black imams, let me know. About 90% of the imams and khatibs that do Jummah at Howard University are Black Muslims, because that's our population, that's who we serve, and that is who we want to represent Islam to. It's not a foreign religion for us. We have known about Islam since the 1800s during slavery and up into the 1900s. And so discuss Islam during Black History Month. We know this is the way of our Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. He came to give Islam to us all and to all of humanity. He was a man of diversity and inclusion. His last khutbah talks about one is not better than the other. The male is not better than the female. The white is not better than the black. The black is not better than the white. But how can we demonstrate that if our MSAs are little cliques that are only for South Asian and Arabs, and the Black people feel like it's not for them? And so we can do better. I know you can do better, and I am here to help you if you need my help and service. I'm at Howard University. One of our students is going to be speaking later, our MSA president. She's an amazing student. Make sure you listen to her. So if there's not anything else, I want to leave you as I came in peace of Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Thank you so much, Dr. Nisa, for this much needed lecture and conversation to have. Thank you for sharing with us the legacy of our Black Muslim brothers and sisters, and for us not from the Black Muslim community, the efforts we must do to ensure that there is equity and justice in the way that we treat everyone from the Ummah of the Prophet. I really want to emphasize this point, and to follow up on Dr. Nisa's speech. We have a anti-racism training from Muslim Arc, which is an organization that works in doing anti-racism training and educating community leaders about the issues around the Black community and how to construct better spaces for all of us. This training will be held at 6 to 8 p.m. Central Time tonight. I would deeply encourage all of us to come. These issues aren't being talked about, some foreign entity or another individual. There are issues that have to do with us, everyone that isn't from the Black Muslim community. We have to step in, be humble, learn, and listen to our Black Muslim brothers and sisters about what we need to do to be better. So inshallah, reminder for myself first and foremost, for the MSA National team, and for all of you guys joining us, please, if there's one session you attend, please attend the Muslim Arc anti-racism training at 6 to 8 p.m. Central Time tonight. This is going to be free. Anyone can join. It really is an incredible opportunity. Once again, thank you so much, Dr. Nisa, for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the opportunity. Assalamu alaikum.
So, inshallah, now we will have our first break. We will meet and reconvene again at 2:30 p.m. Central timing. So please convert that to your local time. Again, 2:30 p.m. Central timing is when we will meet again. And then inshallah, we'll start off with a session with Mufti Brother Mufti Hussein Kamani, and we will proceed from there. So inshallah, see all of you guys very soon. Again, at 2:30 p.m. Central Timing, we will resume our programming. Jazakallah khair.